Hey guys, good morning. Welcome to another episode of MC Commute. Today we're going to be riding to the motorcyclist office on KTM's 2019 790 Adventure. Today's episode of MC Commute is brought to you by First Gear. On today's ride, I'm wearing the First Gear ADV Air Jacket, Vector Air Boot, and Air Speed Textile Glove. If you want to know more about these products, please check the link in the description of this video. Now let's throw on the helmet and go for a ride. Alright guys, here she is, KTM's 2019 790 Adventure. This is an all-new mid-size ADV bike from the Austrians at KTM. Now what I really like about this bike is just the aesthetics of this thing. KTM street bikes are always known for their sharp angular lines, and this 790 Adventure is no different. Look at the way that the fork guards are shaped, the bodywork, that big shroud plastic thing down here you might be looking at, that's actually the fuel tank. So the fuel tank starts up here, but it carries the majority of its 5.2 gallon capacity here down low, and that basically is designed to help accentuate handling and make the bike handle a lot better, especially in the rough stuff. I love the attention to detail. Fit and finish of everything is fairly good. There's some little bit of like manufacturing supplier paper stuff on some of the things, which is kind of a little bit goofy. If KTM could just get rid of that, clean that up, it would have a really well-built and aesthetically pleasing motorcycle. But overall, I really do like the looks of this motorcycle. It looks high-tech. I love the LED headlight. It's got that praying mantis face, which is similar to the rest of KTM's sport motorcycle line. So overall, a very nice looking motorcycle. Now let's hop on it and go for a ride. Alright guys, how's she sound? Sounds pretty good, right? Alright, we've already disabled some of the settings and put it in the preferred vehicle mode. Where right now we're in rally mode with ABS and off-road. So basically the front ABS is on, rear ABS is disabled. You can adjust all the settings via this switch gear here. It's actually quite easy to use. You just have to be at a stop to do it. Right away, riding this motorcycle, the ergonomics of it, very comfortable bike. We've said before, KTM has a knack for fitting its street bikes with very accommodating ergonomics, and this 790 Adventure is no different. Very comfortable motorcycle. I really like the seat. The seat is flat, it's wide, it's big, it's supportive. It's actually really comfortable. Handlebars got a nice upright bend. Sweeps not too far back, not too far forward. Very slim motorcycle beneath me. We just talked about how the fuel tank, the majority of the fuel is carried very low. It's not, the fuel's not carried traditionally at the up top, and that just gives you a lot more area where you sit on the motorcycle. You have a lot more area to grip the bike. 790 Adventure still cuts through traffic pretty well. Look at this guy. Forgot something. Probably cigarettes. And away we go, guys. A lot of power out of this 799cc parallel twin. The actual tuning of the engine is quite different from the 790 Duke. Specifically, the camshaft's different and the ignition programming's different. And you wouldn't think those two changes would make such a difference, but they do. On the dyno, this motorcycle actually makes 10 horsepower less than the 790 Duke. 790 Duke makes 95 horsepower. This thing makes 85. 790 Duke also makes more peak torque, right around 58 foot-pounds of peak torque. This thing makes a little bit less, but this thing arrives, its torque curve signs on much earlier. From right around 4,000 RPM, you've got over a 50 foot-pound of torque at your disposal. So the 790 Duke's certainly no slouch in the torque department, but the engine configuration in this adventure model has even more immediate torque. Jumps off the line really good. KTM's known for their use of V-twin engines in their sporting bikes and big ADV bikes. So they wanted to give this parallel twin engine the feel and sound of a V-twin. So to do that, they used a really unique design. So the actual engine firing order, the ignition timing, and where the connecting rods are placed all contribute to a V-twin-like sound and feel, and they've done a really good job. This engine feels very much like a V-twin, even though it's not. Of course, an inline 2 parallel twin, its packaging is just so nice. It's just such a small engine configuration that you can place it wherever you want in the chassis, and it really just helps the dynamic of the motorcycle handling wise, as well as keeping it super slim and compact. This thing jumps off corners well. We were in second gear during that launch, and this engine makes so much torque that it pulls it no problem. A little bit of vibration through the handlebars. Not bad. The V-twin style that KTM likes always has a little bit of vibration, and this parallel twin has that same kind of V-twin-esque vibration. There's twin counterbalancers in the engine, so things don't get too out of control. Overall, I think they've done a really nice job with this engine. The fueling is well mannered. This is a ride-by-wire bike, so sometimes with ride-by-wire bikes, it's really difficult to get the calibration of the throttle response just perfectly dialed and seamless feeling like you would with a normal cable actuated setup. But KTM's been doing it for a couple years now, and they've definitely made some improvements there on that side, and the throttle response is really good. Since we're in rally mode gives you the hardest hitting throttle response. It also allows you to adjust the traction control on the fly. So we're hitting this button here and the slip mode goes up and down. 9's the highest. So 9 will give you the least amount of slip. And inversely, you go on to 1, gives you the most. Why would you want more or less slip? Well, the lower the number, the more wheel spin you can get if you give her hard throttle. It's got some oomph to it. This 790 Adventure is fitted with an electronic quick shifter, so you can downshift without using the clutch. But to be fair, using the clutch on this motorcycle is very nice. Even though it's cable actuated, it actually feels like it's hydraulic. Just the action's so smooth and the pull is progressive and light. They've done a really nice job with the actuation of this clutch. I don't remember the 790 Duke's clutch being as good as this one, even though they're the same. When KTM was originally making the 790 Duke, they did very comprehensive endurance testing on that engine. They had banks of dynos in Austria just running engines 24 hours a day. They logged over 600,000 street miles, if my memory serves me correctly on that bike. So comprehensive dyno tuning, dyno testing to make sure this engine has the durability. But even when the engine came out, some 790 Dukes, there was a production issue where a couple of the bikes early on in production would leak oil. So KTM addressed that, and they also addressed that in the 790 Adventure, made sure that these bikes will never leak oil. Sometimes you just gotta go. And the 790 Adventure happily obliges. So being an ADV bike, we're riding on long travel suspension. This thing has right around 7.9 inches of suspension travel fore and aft. There's no adjustment. It's fixed damping and preload. The shock, you can obviously adjust the preload. So although you can't adjust the suspension on this bike, aside from the shock's preload, the fork's actually pretty cool. So it actually divides compression and rebound damping duties between fork legs, which is kind of interesting. A lot of other suspension companies separate spring and damping between fork legs, but this WP suspension actually divides the damping qualities between the fork legs. And the calibration of this fork, despite not having any adjustment, is really good. It's very supportive. The damping circuits between compression and rebound, they work well, at least on the road. We haven't had a chance to ride this thing off-road at all, but I would assume, just based on how favorable the suspension works on the street, that it would work well on the road. If you have good supportive road suspension, it's generally going to work real well off-road too, especially if you're a guy who likes to go a little faster. KTM did extensive suspension testing here in America. You gotta remember, these bikes are made in Austria. They're also engineered and developed in Austria, but KTM really wanted this bike to suit the American rider, so they did its suspension testing predominantly here by Quinn Cody, who is no slouch on a ADV or any motorcycle for that matter. So the suspension calibration on this 790 Adventure is really, really good. A lot of times motorcycle manufacturers get that wrong, but KTM got it right with this bike. Of course, if you want something that's a little bit more enduro-y for really withstand the rigors of off-road use, KTM's got the $1,000 more expensive R model, which comes with a larger diameter fork, 5mm larger I think, and then 1.5 inch more travel suspension. So it'd be interesting to see how that stuff works. Or speaking of suspension, this bike also comes with a steering dampener standard. Not so much important on the road, but when you're riding off-road, that'll be a nice thing. Help keep the handlebar from going crazy when you hit some bumps. Dash display on this bike, I like it. It's colorful, fonts are crisp. The actual size is pretty good, but there's another Bavarian brand with an even larger display. Larger is always better. I mean, you see these numbers here, like the gear position, it's kind of small. All this stuff here, it's kind of hard to read. I think a larger color display would be even better. I'd like to see touchscreen too. This thing isn't touchscreen. Touchscreen would be a nice improvement. I know the folks over at Polaris, they offer a touchscreen and it works really nice. Why can't you guys add a touchscreen, KTM? To be fair though, the menu navigation here works pretty well. My only complaint is the tactile feel of the buttons is a little cheap feeling. When you press them, it just doesn't feel as good as some of the competition. But the dash display is loaded with all the information you ever need to see stuff. You can make adjustments on the fly. Pretty decent setup. So we're cruising here on the freeway, 60 miles per hour, just over 4,000 RPM. Engine's real smooth at this RPM. There's a little bit of buzz you can feel from the engine, but it's more of like a growl or a characteristic of the motor more than actual vibration. Mirrors, a little bit buzzy, a little small. For some reason, KTM always puts pretty flimsy mirrors on their street bikes. And 790 Adventure is no different. Like to see a little bit higher quality mirror. I know these things come loose all the time with the nut. You always have to adjust the nut to make sure that they don't get loose. So it'd be nice if KTM engineered a better rear view mirror solution, because realistically we're riding these bikes on the street and it's nice to have mirrors to be able to look behind you so you don't have to cock your head. Talked about the suspension. It's very well supportive. It's got a somewhat firm ride, not overly so, but definitely a little bit firm. Hit some of these bumps and you feel them. You definitely feel them, but I like that firmness. The supportive seat, how thick the seat kind of offsets the initial roughness of the suspension over bumps. This windshield does an okay job of shielding the rider, but I think taller folks are gonna notice that's a little bit short. This windscreen could be taller. I'm 6 foot tall, and it basically just covers my chin bar. It's never good. Water or oil or some kind of leaky stuff. Oh god, this guy's leaking something from his car. Jesus. Let's get out of here. Great, another turn. I love turns. We really haven't talked about the actual handling of this bike, but the handling is pretty great. And this thing's riding on a 21-inch front, 18-inch rear wheel combo. That's off-road. That's full off-road style wheels, which I like, yet this bike handles really good on the street. 21-inch wheel equipped street bike shouldn't handle as good as they do, but this one does. Love the engine. It's got just enough power to excite you, but not so much that it's gonna get away from you. Those 1290 Super Adventure KTM, it's an awesome bike, but god, the engine is just so burly and the bike's so heavy and big. I think this 790 Adventure is really going to hit a good sweet spot with a lot of motorcycle riders, whether you ride on the street or dirt. This 790 Adventure is riding on road tires made by Avon, and they have pretty decent grip. Of course, if you plan on riding more off-road, you want a more aggressive knob, you can easily fit that. There's a bazillion great off-road tires out there in 21-inch front, 18-inch rear sizes that can just bolt right onto this bike. Really upgrade its prowess off-road. Additionally, there's a lot of great road bike rubber. So rubber if you want to rail around turns on the asphalt. A lot of great options there too. So 2118 is definitely the wheel size combo. I don't know why all ADV manufacturers just don't use that. If you want a real off-road bike that works good off-road and on-road, you need 2118s. That's just how it is. Forgot to talk about the brakes. This thing has double disc brakes up front, single hydraulic disc brake in the rear. And the brakes on the 790 Duke were never that impressive to me, but the brakes on the 790 Adventure work really well. Good amount of feel from the lever, power's good. That fork complements the brakes just because it's so well supportive. I like having fully adjustable ABS, so you can have ABS, front and rear ABS on. You can manually disable rear ABS, or you can turn the whole thing off. I really like that. Alright guys, the wheelie test. Let's see how she does. We need to do it again. Yeah, much better. Good job, KTM. Throttle response is good too. Let's do the back of end test now. It's okay. This thing has a slipper clutch, but the slipper clutch doesn't slip as much as it should. But overall, good job, KTM. Nice bike you guys have here. Alright guys, we're arriving at the motorcyclist office here. If you want to know more about KTM's 2019 790 Adventure, hop on to cycleworld.com. They have a review there. We don't have any reviews at Motorcyclist Online, so sorry about that. So if you want to read more about this bike, please log on to cycleworld.com. Alright guys, we're here. Alright guys, there she is, KTM's 2019 790 Adventure. I do like this motorcycle, I really do. It looks really cool. It has a very pleasing handling dynamic. It feels light. Seat is very comfortable. Rear seat, look how big it is. You could fit a person on the back of that thing. They're going to be very, very comfortable. That rear rack, you can strap on your umbrella and your beach chair and all of your stuff on there so you can go anywhere. Really like that this bike comes with a 21-inch front, 18-inch rear wheel combo logically, thank God. The fuel tank mounted beneath the motorcycle, right like that. It's definitely a neat engineering thing. It's built from some heavy-duty plastic. KTM did some endurance testing where they had Quinn Cody go out to the desert in 100-degree heat and just try to bash it with rocks, bash it with rocks, bash it with rocks. And they couldn't get it to break. But still, it seems kind of a little bit goofy to me. But kudos to KTM for trying something different and doing the endurance testing. A very nice bike from KTM. Would I buy this $12,500 790 Adventure, $1,000 less than the R? Yeah, I would definitely consider this bike for an ADV bike if I was looking for that kind of machine. It looks cool, sounds cool, has good performance. The calibration of all the controls works well. KTM really did their homework with this motorcycle. Good job, guys. Let's do a little Q&A real quick. Fire up the Instagram machine, see what's up. Let's fire up the Instagram machine, see what's up. Little Q&A. Let's go back in the archives. Here we go. Alright, let's do some Q&A, guys. Let's go to the top. That headlight is enough for me to wait for the Tenere 700 gross. I like the headlight on this bike. Can you enable cruise control? I think it's a software extra. Yes, you have to pay extra for cruise control. It's an optional feature. Perceived quality versus Austrian-built KTM products. Why did they go with a cable clutch after using Brembo hydraulics for 20 years? That's a great question. I'm not exactly sure why they went with a cable-actuated clutch, probably just for simplicity and have a little bit less weight. But honestly, that cable-actuated clutch works really good. Feels awesome. It's very responsive, pulls really accurate, yet it's weighted right. They actually did a really good job with this clutch. It feels almost like a well-sorted hydraulic clutch. So, not really sure exactly why they went with a cable-actuated clutch, but it's a good clutch. It works really good. So, good job, KTM. And great question from Knees Peas. How's the step over height for those short folk? That seat's pretty low for a ADV bike.
I think if you were a shorter rider, you could get along with this bike pretty well. Of course, you can actually adjust the height of the seat. With the standard seat, it goes a little bit up and it goes a little bit down. And there's also a optional high seat for you tall guys and a low seat for you shorter riders. So I would say KTM covered their bases with the height spectrum of potential riders very well. This, the 1290 Super Adventure, which one would you put your own money on? Well, it really depends. You know, if I'm cross-country touring and going across America, I'd probably want a 1290 just because it has more payload and carrying capacity. It's just faster and bigger. But if I'm goofing around, you know, intrastate, within the state, not going super far, I would definitely want this motorcycle. So it just depends. If you're going on long hauls, get the big bike. If you're going on shorter hauls, get this one. Game over. One more question from KTM 990. What's the low speed throttle like? Is second gear between 2 and 4,000 RPM jerky or smooth? I'd say it's pretty good. KTM really did their homework with the EFI mapping and the throttle response and the ignition timing. A lot of times companies blow it and get that wrong. I don't even know how, but they got it right on this bike. And I would say the throttle response is very, very good for a ride-by-wire bike. It's probably one of the better ride-by-wire throttle responses I've ridden lately. So good job again, KTM, and great question. I wouldn't hesitate to recommend this bike because the throttle response is that good. And of course, you can adjust the power modes. So if you want a little bit smoother throttle response, a little bit less power output, you put it in that mode. If you want full max power everywhere, rally mode. So good job, everybody. All right, guys, that's a wrap from today's MC Commute. Make sure to subscribe to our channel, leave us a comment, and we'll see you guys next time. Thank you for watching.